G'day there, guys and girls, and welcome to the next episode of the Finnovator. And for this one, I'm diving into the kit bag from years past, but I want to because it's super relevant. Charles Badenach is a gentleman I had the great privilege of traveling around Australia during one of the AFA events. I think it was the AFA Gen X event. And anybody, if you spent time with Charles, you'll know that not only he got a really interesting background and story, but as well as that, he's one of these people who's very good at telling his own story and, frankly, promoting his personal brand without coming across all douchey. I think I've seen a lot of people, particularly since this conversation with Charles, and you see them do their marketing and it's all about them and how amazing they are, how they've worked with 1,000 clients. And you know that in this world where genuineness is supposed to be so valued that it's just about as far from genuine as you can get, right? Well, Charles is one of these guys who's just managed to do it with a little bit of class. And when I ran this session, one of the memorable things he used to say in front of people that he's just an ordinary guy. And Charles is in many ways an ordinary guy, but some of the things he does and the way he goes about promoting himself makes him far from ordinary. We in this podcast talked about everything from the really smart strategy he had for utilizing a book he wrote and getting it out there. He talks a lot about the importance of getting involved in community things. He talked about a specific bunch of activities he did during Christmas, which made him a real, I guess if you want to use the word micro-celebrity, and I don't mean that in a offensive way, but I mean in other words, becoming a celebrity, a well-known and a leading figure in your community. Well, there's some real gold in here. I think a lot of these days, we're always looking for the quick fix, getting the social media campaign or the Facebook ads or that stuff that's going to get you in front of people. But I think what Charles shared in this, which I think is just as relevant now as it was when we ran it, is sometimes the best way to build traction is to build relationships in your personal community and give people the opportunity to get to know you and get in front of them and be part of that. And I think this comes up in spades. I hope you really enjoy this sort of pull from the archives. I know I did, and I got a lot of enjoyment listening to it once again. So without a shadow of a doubt, without the delay, let me hand over to Charles, where he's going to talk about personal branding. One of the benefits that the internet has given us is something called the long tail. If you wanted to take an interest in a specialist subject a while ago, it was kind of hard to find people who shared your view. And certainly, for example, if you're searching for a book on something niche, it was kind of difficult to find. But the internet has meant that it's been able, of different people of different interests, to congregate together and created lots of tribes out there, the world of tribes. And the benefit of this is whatever you do, whether you're an advisor, a mortgage broker, an accountant, or something else, it's led to what we call the rise of the micro-celebrity. In other words, it's very possible using smart marketing techniques to become really well known to those people within a very specific niche, even though people outside of that niche may not know who you are. And that's exactly what today's guest, Charles, has done. Let me give you a background to Charles, because he is he's quite an extraordinary person. I actually had the opportunity to travel around Australia with Charles, God, was it about a year, maybe 2 years ago? And the one thing Charles constantly says is that he's just an ordinary bloke. And I think Charles is very, very humble about what he does, because he's, for an ordinary bloke, he's had some extraordinary achievements. Over the last 12 years, Charles has spoken at national conferences, schools, universities, public forums, businesses, and at various different things. He's written a self-help financial book called Old Head on Young Shoulders, which actually made the national bestsellers list, something I'm very jealous of. He regularly writes in industry publications, and he's won numerous awards, including Innovator of the Year in 2014 in the IFA Excellence, Money Management Australian Financial Planner of the Year in 2011, as well as Financial Planning Association Awards, Financial Standard Awards, Future 2 Community Service Awards, State Runners-Up in the FPA Certified Financial Planner, and a whole bunch of other things, as well as holding numerous external board and advisory positions. So Charles is not only a great planner, he's been recognized all around the industry as such. So I'm really looking forward to sort of getting down to it and finding it. Dude, how are you this morning?
No, going well. All pumped, really. So good day, Friday, all good.
So you've been up at 5 o'clock, you've taken the dog for a walk, you've ridden 30 Ks there and back, and now is mid-morning for you, really, isn't it?
Yeah, and I like to start early. Like sort of a lot of guys in their sort of early 40s, had a bit of a midlife crisis, and we sort of ride a bike a few mornings a week with a few guys. It's a good way to start the day.
It is indeed. It is indeed. I love cycling. The way they look as they zip past me in the morning. That's about as far as I get. But
I'm normally at the rear, mind you, so particularly up the hills.
That's a smart place to be because you're behind someone else. There's a bit of, slingshot, shake and bake, that sort of stuff. I feel kind of silly asking this, but if there's anybody out there who isn't intimately sort of familiar with you and what you do them a quick favor and just give us a quick overview of who you are, what you do, and who you help.
Okay, well, look, we set up a boutique. My business partner and I, Rebecca Ferguson, we left the cosy corporate cubicle about 3.5 years ago. Had to sit out on gardening leave for 6 months, and we basically worked in a room together and tried to sort of map out the sort of business that we would want to work in and really sort of try and create something that if we were clients, we'd want to go and see. So then we sort of kicked off in June 2014. We've been going about 3 years. We've got 8 of us now. We've got 3 ARs, 5 support staff, and the growth trajectory's been pretty good. And I suppose what we've tried to do is create a business we really enjoy going to and have a passion for, and also the staff enjoy coming to work. So it's good being able to create your own culture and workplace.
Beautiful. And do you work with any particular type of client, any particular area, or is it general sort of?
I suppose like most advisors out there, we deal with the financial delegators, but also the busy professionals.
Okay.
Whilst we call ourselves Main Street, it's a bit of a play on words in a sense, and potentially the name may not work in Melbourne or Sydney, but we do tend to work at the pointy end of the market here locally.
Okay. And have you always been a Hobart regular, or did you do the smart thing and get out of one of the major cities?
Well, I sort of backpacked for a couple of years in the 90s, came back, sort of worked as a commercial lawyer for sort of 4 or 5 years, but just didn't really have a passion for it. So I did the financial planning studies more out of interest than anything else and realised it was actually more fun than what I was doing. So I made the move to Shadforth in about 2001. Mm-hmm. Stayed there for sort of 13 years, then moved over to the boutique sort of IFA space.
Talk to me about, you don't meet a lot of lawyers who then go on to become financial advisors. I assume you don't, possibly you know more than I do, but tell us about how that came about.
It was interesting. There was I actually had done all the qualifications before I started working at Shadforth, and so I actually put a proposal to my previous firm called Murdoch Clark if we could actually run a financial planning practice in the law firm, and they said, yeah, that's fine. So I actually did sort of 2 days work as a financial advisor and 3 days as a lawyer, but it was kind of like working as a doctor and a dentist in the same office. It kind of didn't work. I did it for 4 months, and I prefer to do my financial planning days and the legal days, and there's a very different way of approaching clients back in those days. So when you're in the law, the clients will do whatever you say. Whereas in financial services, you've actually got to bring the clients along with you, because dealing with someone's money and their personal circumstances, it's a different conversation you have.
Okay. And how did you make the transition? Was it just suddenly, one day you're a lawyer, next day you're an advisor, or was it a slow evolution?
Very much like that. So I actually sort of, I gave sort of Murdoch Clark 6 months notice, so which was the longest 6 months of my life, I could tell you. But and I did the 2 days at Shadforth, 3 days at Murdoch Clark. That was so I could transition. The clients then sort of kicked off at Shadforth in about June 2001. And one of the first things I did is you walked in and you were given a desk and a phone and a computer, and they guaranteed your salary for a year. And it was very sort of confronting for a guy that hadn't worked in that environment before. So yeah. I sort of had probably 100 key legal clients that I wrote a letter to, and I wanted to make sure they remembered me. So I put 2 minties in each letter. And even today, 15, 16 years later, people still raise that. And this was a very basic marketing ploy, but it actually worked. So that was sort of how I gradually got started.
Just unpack the thought behind putting minties in an envelope.
Well, it was, I suppose I just wanted to do something that they would remember, something that was a little bit different. And I suppose that's what we've tried to sort of carry through over the years, because if we drive the same car at the same speed in the same lane as everyone else, we're going to get the same outcome. So what we've tried to do is do the ordinary things extraordinarily well, so that when whoever you come across with, in whatever circumstance, they actually leave with that warm, fuzzy feeling. So in effect, you're actually creating an advocate for what you do. And I suppose it's like building a sandcastle, a grain of sand at a time. And it just has this multiplier effect, and it's really, really powerful.
Absolutely. And this is one thing that when I watched your presentation 5 times when we were traveling around the country, and every single time I just got something new out of it. And it was this, you just got this natural ability to look at a thing like a marketing opportunity or a Christmas card and go, how can I just do this? I don't have to spend a lot of money, but how can I do this in such a way that is just going to make it slightly different, slightly out there, and slightly sort of more memorable than everybody else? And that's, it's really impressive.
But I remember one year when I did when I was working at Shadforce, we actually used to give Christmas cards. So what I arranged to do is actually had these personalised chocolates done up. And so we put it in the Christmas card.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember those sort of things. Or when we were there, we used to have corporate umbrellas. And I'd sort of take 60 of them, put them in my office, and people just couldn't understand why I'd do it. But whenever it rained and a client came into my office, I'd give them an umbrella. And for me, it was absolutely no-brainer. And for the client, they were absolutely really appreciated it. And, you walk into a professional's office and you walk out with an umbrella on a rainy day, you're going to remember that professional, and you're going to also tell your friends and family about it.
Absolutely. Are you familiar with a guy called Derek Sivers?
Yeah, he runs a podcast, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's a good mate of Tim Ferriss's and a whole bunch of others. But he started a business called CD Baby. So the deal was, iTunes and all these sort of music companies were owning the space, and he wanted to create a platform for independent musicians. So he started this thing and did extremely well out of it. Sold it for, I think, 33 million and put 30 million of the revenue straight into a charitable fund for musicians. But he has this letter that used to go out with every CD purchase. And it talks about,
I have seen that letter. I have seen that. It's I've actually got it we have a thing once a month. We have a work on the business day, and that's actually so it's the first Friday in every month. So what we aim to do is we have all of the staff. It's coordinated by the office manager that we wear plain clothes, and you actually work on the business. We don't see clients, so you try and do something that's going to make your job more productive going forward. So whether that's doing a template letter or that sort of stuff. And normally I run a session to start off with, and I came across that email about the individually wrapped CD, and that's part of the thing I'm talking about customer service next Friday, Stuart. So
silk-lined gloves. It was carried to the airport and loaded in a gold-lined box. And it was just, it's just a classic example of how you can take something so mundane and just someone takes it out and reads it and smiles. And next thing you know, that's done more rounds of the internet than Kim Kardashian, I'd imagine. Genius stuff. Let's talk a bit about, so you've made the leap out of the legal world. You're now with Shadforce. You're obviously not with Shadforce anymore. You've started your own business. So talk to me about that transition. What was the timeframes? How did it happen? What were some of the challenges?
I suppose over time, when I first started at Shadforce, we were very much a boutique business, and we grew quite quickly. So we also became listed. So the drivers are different from a listed business to an unlisted business. And I suppose when you hit your early 40s, you really want to control your destiny. I know if I looked in the glass sort of 10 years out, I saw that potentially I would be early 50s. I'd be sort of a price taker, not a price maker. There's always someone younger, faster than you in that sort of environment. Whereas if I actually was to leave and sort of create my own destiny, where I can actually choose what I do, who I do it with, and when I do it, that's really powerful. So took the leap. It was a pretty full-on period, I have to say. Rebecca and I were two of their key business writers. So when you leave, they certainly don't roll out the red carpet for you. I think when I left the office, I nearly tore a hamstring. I was walked out that quick. Went up to the local sort of tavern to get a drink because it was in the afternoon, and it's pretty full on. Then by the time I'd got my drink and came and sat back down, I'd been cut off all the phone system.
Wow.
The next morning at 8:30, I had a courier letter telling me what I couldn't do. Huh. A lot of correspondence from lawyers. I actually didn't do anything wrong. I had to sit out for 6 months, had a 3-year restraint, and it was pretty full on. I mean, there were things that, like, for example, I appeared in the phone book. I left in 2013, appeared in the phone book in 2014, 15 and 16 because they wouldn't remove me. So it was a challenging period, but it actually just motivates you more than you'd ever believe when that happens.
Yeah. It's interesting. Look, I've had the experience of sort of leaving, and there's still sort of content that I produced on other people's sites, but that's the thing. You can either choose to look back on it and go, you know what, I'm going to use this as fuel to fuel me, take me forward. I think it's the only way you can do it.
So it's probably one of the best things that happened to us, really, because it actually really put the fire in the belly was already there, but it lit like you wouldn't believe, for both Rebecca and I.
Absolutely. It's like, thank you for giving me a reason to do this. Totally sort of empathize with that. So this is 2013?
Yep.
2013. So Main Street, you took some clients with you or no clients at all?
No, we had to start as a greenfield, so we couldn't actually touch any clients for a period of 3 years. So from when my formal finishing date, so till January this year.
Great. Yep.
But you tend to find that there's plenty of clients around, and it's pretty confronting to start off with. But if you just do those sort of basic things well and are fairly consistent with it, the clients will come. And I suppose we've been able to reinvent ourselves and reinvent ourselves pretty well, actually, and it's been good.
So there's two things that I think really I'd like to dive deep on, and feel free to sort of direct this if you want to go in another direction, Charles. But one is the marketing or the profile building, which you've absolutely nailed on so many levels. But the second is, the stuff that we spoke about yesterday, which is being able to see 30 clients and seem to do this efficiently. Which came first, the profile building and the marketing, or the approach to creating a business that enables you to be front stage?
Well, I suppose initially I was been very focused for a long period of time on sort of having a good Google presence, because we are who Google says we are, as you know. People will do their due diligence that way. So I've been very conscious to have to build my Google profile over the last probably sort of 5 years.
Yep.
And by doing little things, so whether it's writing blogs for people, whether it's writing articles for people, all of those sort of things. So that's certainly helped. We were very early adopters of video, and we've tried to be sort of quite innovative how we've used video.
Yep.
So I was one of the early adopters of the Baz Gardner social advisor model with a couple of others, sort of like Henderson Maxwell or others, Everlesco or others. There's a few of us, Liam Short. So I've done that, and we focused a lot on the first 6 months when we weren't working on building that Google presence. So making sure that we had some ebooks, all of those sort of resources. And then it's like something that works 24/7, 365 days a year. And so that was probably the start. Then we tried to build systems and processes that what would really enable everyone in the office to actually work at their strengths. So we often go to in large organisations, I've said, you've got to work on your weaknesses and whatever, but I kind of don't agree with that. I think we're actually better to build a team that, there's some things I do really, really well and some things I do really, really badly. And the things that I do really, really badly, I should employ someone who does them really, really well. Yeah. And so by focusing on the things that you enjoy doing, and I enjoy helping people, I enjoy seeing people, I enjoy creating activity and momentum and all of those sort of things, we all sort of get dragged along in that sort of vortex. So it works well, and Rebecca's very good at what she does as well. So it's a bit like the yin and the yang, really.
I love that. We in the program, Charles, we've got a module called the activity audit. And it's when you got people who are overwhelmed or they're just doing, they're doing a lot of stuff, urgent stuff instead of important stuff. It's about sort of getting everything you do in your role out on a piece of paper or out on a spreadsheet. And it's really categorizing into two things. The stuff that is your genius, you're great at. If you did more of it, it would drive your business forward and it would make you happier. And then the stuff that potentially is not a strength, you could outsource, you could delegate, you can automate. And I think that for me, the secret to, being in the role you want and building the business you want is to, over a period of time, work out a way to systematize the things you don't want to do anymore and hand them over to either employees, outsourced providers, or technology.
Yeah, and I suppose we did something similar. So we actually divided the work roles into the black zone, the red zone, the green zone. So the red zone is very sort of basic sort of work. So data entry, turning up appointments, that sort of stuff. Yeah. So that's probably say $20 to $30 an hour. Your green zone is sort of working with clients on things. So whether it's doing a record of advice, statement of advice, a phone call, that sort of stuff. Yeah. And the black zone is whether it's running a webinar, whether it's writing an ebook. It's actually about you can't place a value on that. And so what we try to get is with the principle. So with Rebecca and I, for example, we try to work in the black and the green zone. And so being fairly conscious of that over the years as well.
I love it. I remember hearing a similar sort of model from, I think it was Sherlaw's used to sort of do colourful things back in the day. But I don't think it's the first time people have talked about categorizing and getting really clear about the elements. Can we talk a bit about articles and videos? I'd love to know, what are some of the things you've found important to write stuff or put stuff out there that people are going to actually use, and what sort of time frame did it take you before you started getting traction with this stuff?
I suppose there's a lot of noise out there, and so a lot of people use the machine gun approach and try and just be all things to everyone. And what we've been very conscious about is really trying to go fishing where the fish are.
Yeah.
Okay. So, with Snapchat, for example, that's my daughter's vintage at sort of teenage years. It's kind of not really our game. So we're not on Snapchat. But, LinkedIn's an example, Facebook, those things. But where you do it, we don't just produce generic content. You're actually better to produce, specific content with a little bit of humour. And I'm not that funny, but I try to be. I'm not really funny, but that actually people can relate to. So, and specific things. So I did a LinkedIn post. We had a young guy who works with us, and he's a very good guy. And he came and basically made an appointment to see me. And he was 24, and we gave him. He started off doing part-time work, and now he's in 2.5 years. He's done all his studies, and he's about to become an advisor. So I put a post on that on LinkedIn, and that ended up with sort of 2,000 likes and 150,000 views as an example. So you're actually relating it to us personally. So we've tried to post rather than every day or every week, where we've got something meaningful to say that we think people will actually engage with, we put it up there.
I love it. So there were a couple of questions that came up. I'm going to start pulling some. Glenn sort of talked about how do you become a micro-celebrity. Sean sort of mentioned what's the process for distilling what your personal brand would represent. It feels like we're kind of talking a little bit about this, stand for something, stand against something, state something out there that, is going to attract people who believe what you believe. What's your best advice on how to sort of build that brand and sort of get real estate in people's heads?
Yeah, well, I suppose I kind of don't really look at myself as a micro celebrity, to be frank. I appreciate you thinking I am.
I knew you wouldn't. I knew you'd be like, I don't know what you're talking about, Stu.
But I suppose the key thing I think is to be consistent in what you do and find something that you enjoy and actually just genuinely help people. Because at the end of the day, if you're genuinely helping people and giving them information and giving them resources and stuff to help them, you can't go wrong. It's not like I'm actually asking them for a lot of time. I'm actually giving them stuff. So whether I'm sending them through an article, whether I'm sort of asking them along to a boardroom lunch, whether I'm actually adding to their life. I'm not. And then, so I'm giving. And then at some point, I want to deal with Charles or deal with Rebecca or the team at Main Street. I suppose it's been an evolving process. And I think too many people just want the quick win. And there's no such thing as a silver bullet. It's just consistent. There's a really great TED talk with Richard St. John, The Secrets of Success. It's about a 3-minute talk. There's a 3-minute version and a 7-minute version. It's something that I probably would watch it once a month, I reckon. It's a really concise way in terms of what you need to do to move forward. And I think I'd encourage everyone to sort of watch it at lunch today. It's a fantastic video.
What was his name? Richard
St. John, The Secrets of Success. It's actually a TED video. Yeah.
He's the behavioural psychologist, right?
Yeah.
He also did a great one on why people care less about themselves than they do their future selves than they do strangers, I think.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that one, but yeah, it's...
Okay. That's perfect. I'm writing that down. That'll be in the notes. Love that. And, you talked about sort of, I get a feeling that patience is the thing that you sort of, if you're going to go this online value creation, create a funnel, how long did it take you to start getting real traction with your videos and your articles?
I suppose I was quite lucky in a sense because I was an early adopter.
Right.
So I kind of looked at it as if I've built my house and I've built a swimming pool and I've put an antenna on the roof and I'm constantly renovating my house. It's very hard for someone who's got a vacant block of land to catch up to me. So if we look at that from a social media, like you've done nothing. So you've got your vacant block of land. I've been building this for sort of 5, 7, 8 years. It's actually quite difficult for you to catch up. So I was quite lucky I did it early. I'm very conscious that we've engaged some really good people. So we've got an SEO team in the Philippines that we get some analytics each month in terms of where we rate with our competitors, keyword searches, all of that sort of stuff. So, and conscious to do things so, where you have, like, for example, the Google Street View. Now you've got Google Office View. So we've actually got that, which improves your Google Analytics for your business, all of those things. So we're constantly evolving. And I suppose we're conscious that, what got us here yesterday is not going to get us there tomorrow.
Love it. I'm going to sort of pull 2 questions from Eve. Wanted to know if you had to sort of nail it down to one tip to build your profile in your market, what would you be focusing on, or what would the tip be?
Consistency. So be consistent in what you do. You can't be a one-hit wonder. And so really it's just an ongoing process. And you'd pick where your fish are, and I'd be just consistently adding value in that sort of area. So, and some things, like, for example, Google Groups used to be quite popular a few years ago, but they seem to have sort of gone. And so I was very sort of active in the Tasmanian business Google groups there for a few years. But yeah, that wasn't sort of working. I had to set up a Google group for myself that I ran and stuff, and it went well for the first 6 months, but it dropped off. So things are changing, and I suppose it's just a bit like disruptive technology and everything. And we've got to be conscious that we've got to constantly move.
Love it. And I guess the other thing I always think about with consistency is first thing is be consistent in your message. You know, don't veer from issue to issue or hot button to hot button, left, right, and center. Try and pick, you know, a few core hot buttons that are really relevant to your market and write about them, talk about them in different ways. And probably the thing is, you know, if you're going to go via video blogging or blogging or whatever your thing is, if you're publishing one blog, you know, 2 in a week, and then you wait a month, and then you publish a video blog, and it's not really going to work. There has to be sort of a consistent production as well, don't you feel?
Yeah, no, very much so. And I suppose what we were very conscious, particularly during our gardening leave period, is to actually create a sort of a library of videos that you can use. And you know, they've got enduring value. You know, 3 years ago I looked a bit younger, but it's still, the message is still relevant.
And what's your tech setup for video? What do you use? How do you make it efficient?
We actually, we've got a video camera guy who's a young uni student, and so we'll get him for the day. We'll actually have 10 to 12 sites. We'll have some script. We use teleprompter from the iPad, so it just sits under the screen, so it's just like I'm a news reader, and providing I don't move my eyes, you will never know I'm reading it. So it works pretty well. And then we do these short sort of bite-sized sort of 1 to 1.5 minute videos. We haven't done them for a year or two, but other than amending the corporate video, because we have to keep amending because we have new staff coming on board, so we're growing. So that's probably, but no, it's it works for us. You can actually get, and that's not overly expensive. So we can get sort of 10 to 15 videos for $1,500. So it's pretty reasonable.
That's perfect. Like it's a lot cheaper than it used to be, and we've got a video guy out in Brazil, and it's great because we upload something to the cloud, and he splices it up, takes out all the dodgy bits, to the point where he says to me, "Don't just roll, and if it doesn't come out right, just stop, look down, go again." So literally, if I want to do something on the fly, I can even have my script down on the ground and just say 2 lines, look down, and start again, and he'll splice it into something that looks good. So video can hide a multitude of sins. Cool. Can you talk a bit about systems and processes? I mean, it's something that a lot of business owners kind of struggle to get around to. Why has it been such a big focus? Where did you learn that lesson about getting it done?
Well, I've got to say, my business partner, Rebecca's very good at this. Very good at systems and processes and making sure, I suppose what we want to do, we want every client experience in our business to be like the Truman Show. So we know what happens at different points. So we've actually got an office manual where we've got every person to actually write down the steps they do. So anyone can pick up any job and know what happens. And I remember when I previously worked at Shadforth, there were a couple of very senior people that had some serious knowledge in their head, and they left. And I was thinking, my goodness, that was a whole waste of resources that, and I just don't think anyone sort of thought about it. But there was like 50 years worth of share trading knowledge in terms of back office systems that walked out the door. And I kind of, when Rebecca and I spoke about it, we thought it was very important to document that. So I suppose it's a business protection mechanism as well. So we know what everyone does, and it's a consistent, like with checklists and that sort of thing. So we've tried to adopt a big business approach to a small business, if that makes sense.
So, I mean, do you actually build the processes yourself, or does someone else do that?
We use Xplan as our system, but we build some. We've also used some through our dealer group as well.
So the processes that you create, is this something that you'll sit down with a whiteboard and draw them up, or do you dictate what you want? Is there a process you've created which enables you to tell people what you want, and then they work out the detail?
Well, basically, we've all got different roles in the office. So, for example, one of the staff, her role is reviews, for example.
Yep.
So when we have we have different sort of, as everyone does, different sort of client segments and a process for review. Okay, this is what we need to get for this sort of client. This is the time frame. This is how we engage with them. And one of the things we use now is we use Calendly, for example. So when you look at the diary, so I'll send you a link, and I've got different meeting sorts. So a review meeting, sort of a new client meeting, and they've got different time periods. So one of the things that I found was people might want to say catch up for coffee, and you can easily waste 3 or 4 hours a week catching up with people for coffee where you're just giving them information. And it's like 10% of my work week. When meant to be seeing clients. So I kind of thought that's not really a productive use of time. So what I've actually done on Calendly, for example, I've actually got a general catch-up. So it's just for 20 minutes.
Right.
So when I send it to you, we're just a very sort of efficient, I've got to go have another appointment, bang. It's an evolving process, I suppose.
There's a great book, I think I've got it here, which I've taken a lot of. And it sounds like it's similar thought. It's by Marcus Bird called The 3-Minute Coach. And it makes that point, which is it's kind of like the amount of time you give to get something done. If you give people an hour, you'll probably get most of the conversation done in the last 20 minutes. But if you condense it down, you can give people exactly the same result in a much shorter space of time. And they leave with more time in their pocket. You leave with more time in their pocket. And you kind of get that reputation as being someone who solves problems fast.
Yeah.
That's perfect. Cool. Let's chat a bit about the efficiency, because I've got a couple of questions coming through around, you do a lot of meetings a week.
Yep.
What does your review process look like? What does the new client process look like from Glenn Doherty? Given what you do, you must be super efficient.
Okay, so I suppose what I'm very lucky that Rebecca and I've got a really good support team that really help us out, that are very good at what they do.
Right.
So with a new client, a new client will actually sort of send an email or ring up. What we will normally do is either send them through, either the receptionist will actually book the appointment, and we'll send them an email with a little sort of personal financial questionnaire they need to complete and all the documentation they need to send in. Normally sort of at least 48 hours before the meeting. So that enables me to actually say, okay, well, Stuart Bell's coming in on Wednesday, this issues, and we can actually, I have a rough idea in terms of what are the issues involved. Yeah. And that may well be that if I can't actually help Stuart, I'd say, look, I might give you a call, Stuart, and say, look, no, you come in Wednesday. These are some of the things I think we need to look at, but it's not really our area of expertise. But I'll come in and we might have a 15-minute chat on it or something. Yeah. So I'm actually very sort of and it also enables us to make sure that we've got the right advisor seeing the right person when they come in.
Yeah.
We will then see the client. We generally don't charge a fee for the first appointment, because I think it's important that gives them a chance to sort of work out whether we're for them and they're for us. It's sort of a bit of an introduction sort of thing. And because what we want to do, like most people out there, is we want to create ongoing relationships with people over a long period of time. Then we would, after we've seen the client initially, we would normally send them through a terms of engagement saying, okay, this is roughly what I think we need to look at. This is roughly what it would cost. They'll come back to us and say, yep, happy with that. And then we'd work through it. And we'd normally have the statement of advice sort of meeting and the questions and the implementation. Then, generally speaking, that proceed to sort of become ongoing clients, because we've got those filters that stops it in the early time. So if they're not suitable. And unfortunately, it's just a numbers game. I mean, you have to turn over a lot of beer coasters till you find one with a gold nugget underneath. And it's like anything. And it's certainly easier now than what it was when we first started, because we've got existing clients that we really enjoy working with, and they see the value that we add, and they actually refer their friends and family to us.
So a lot of advisors I speak to, they struggle with this idea of filtering or saying no, or not, when someone else can come and meet with you, they just say yes. How did you get over that?
I think you can actually help people without taking up too much time. So let's say someone said, look, Charles, we really want to buy an investment property. Okay, now that's kind of not really our core work.
Yep.
We might sort of send them through an email which highlights some websites to be able to assist them. We might talk them through the process in terms of, okay, you've got to have someone who's got your back with this. So whether it's a buyer's agent, whether it's an agent going to send you through properties before they come on the market, we might facilitate that sort of introduction and all that. So I've actually helped the client, but not really giving them any advice. Mm-hmm. And they walk away with that warm, fuzzy feeling.
And does this tie into your speaking work at all?
I suppose speaking sort of something's just evolved over time, really. It's just sort of it just sort of happens, really. And I think speaking is a really powerful forum, because it enables you to speak to a lot of people at once. And it sort of evolved when I wrote that book, and I kind of thought I had to think outside the square. How am I going to actually market this book?
Yeah.
And because everyone's got books, and we've talked about being a great business card, all that sort of stuff. But what I did, I donated a copy of the book to every school in Tasmania, and also to every P&F in Tasmania. So what it meant was my book was in the school library. And then also I'd go and talk at the schools about the 10 common financial mistakes made by young people, and then I'd do a talk at the P&F, and they'd use the book as a bit of a fundraiser. So just sort of thinking outside the square like that. So like helping, but there's also obviously a long-term benefit for me doing that sort of stuff as well.
So do you have a and the answer may be no to this, Charles, but is there a process you go through to ask these questions and come up with these ideas? Or is it just an environment you're getting, or a way you can...
I just sort of, I know they just come up really. I just sort of think outside the square a bit. And I suppose what I'm very conscious, I listen to a lot of podcasts, and so I might send myself, whenever something comes up into my head, I'll send myself an email. So I remember it.
That's good.
The notepad beside the bed, all those sort of things, because occasionally you think, my goodness, that's just a great idea. I'm going to write that down. And I suppose we've managed to, over time, evolve and have all these things that I suppose make us in a workplace where we quite a unique environment, and it's good.
Yeah, I use a tool called Voxer, same sort of thing, but it's actually an audio walkie-talkie, so I can dictate something, and then sort of once a week I'll go and check to see what crazy ideas I've come up with. And if they're decent ideas, we pop them into like our Trello, which is our Scrum board.
Yeah.
And then every 90 days, we'll have a look at the ideas and ask questions whether we should do it. Because I think there's two parts to this for me. There's one, capturing the ideas, but then there's got to be a filter to really ask, whilst I think it's a good idea, I think the team has to have input into whether it's actually what we focus on. And I've got to sort of check it against what I'm looking to achieve. Otherwise, you can end up sort of chasing shiny ideas along the way.
I suppose what we break our year down into 3-month blocks.
Yep.
So we actually have, okay, what are our 3-month targets we're going to do for the business over the next 3 months? So, it might be established Calendly, it might be Dragon dictation, it might be LastPass for the password stuff.
Yep.
It might be build a corporate brochure, and that might be a 3-month target, and we'd work through that. Then we'd actually sit down and reset the next 3 months. Yeah. And so what it enables you to, it links very well into the work on the business day, because if you think about it, we've got 8 of us here, and so you've got 12 days with 8 people. It's effectively like nearly a full-time person working on the business every year if you use that time really constructively.
Love it. I'm going to pull a few questions out from the audience, but I do have some more things I want to ask you, particularly, I'd love to unpack that week a bit more. But Matt Meehan asked a great question. 30 meetings last week. Face-to-face, or is there a mixture in there?
It would have been about 25 face-to-face, probably 5 Skype. People must understand that I've got quite a few people that actually make sure that when I go to a meeting, the file's ready. So I'll have sort of probably 15 minutes in between meetings where I just read up and make sure I'm up to speed with it. We've prepared the agenda sort of a week before. So you're really hitting the ground running. So I try to make sure that at the end of a Thursday, I've done everything I need to do on a Thursday, and I've got my to-do list for the Friday. I'm all set for the Friday. So it's very, I suppose, planned. It's a little bit like the Truman Show. It works well, and that's my role in the business, is to see people and engage with people. So it's more effective for me doing that rather than writing a statement of advice.
It feels a lot like you've really perfected this idea of being the race car driver in the car. You've worked out, right, I don't want to be changing the wheels. I don't want to be get out refueling the car. So I need to set up a process that enables me to just drive, and that everything else, when I pit, is done and I can move on.
Yeah, well, I think that's right, because if at the end they have 2 principles. If Rebecca and I don't drive the business, how's the business going to drive?
Absolutely.
And over time, we've got sort of an advisor in training, I suppose. He'll be an advisor in the next sort of 6 months, but he'll often come in a meeting that's suitable for him, and he'll run with a lot of it. And it's a good training ground for him as well. And I suppose it's the most important thing, I think, from an advisor's point of view, is to engage with clients and people. Absolutely.
And that's what you're good at. I mean, I know a lot of advisors who'd love to just work on the strategy stuff, in which case, to your point, play to your strengths and backfill your weaknesses. So if you don't like the client, if you're an introvert advisor, then find somebody who loves the front end stuff. Similarly, I think a lot of businesses have got to reach a point where if maybe you don't like managing people and you're not an organizer and a systematizer, then get someone who can manage the practice. Sounds like you've got it in Rebecca. And
we've got Rebecca, and we've got an office manager, Anna, who's like Rebecca's. She's an A-grade quality advisor as well, but Anna's our office manager, and Anna loves that stuff. We have a lot of confidence in her, and I suppose we've known her for a long time, and she works well, and we own the building as well, so Anna manages that for us, and we'd be lost without Anna.
Can we talk about Xplan just quickly?
Yep.
How instrumental has Xplan been in systemizing your business? And given so many advisors or CRMs are a bit of a bugbear for advice businesses, and Xplan, gets complained about quite a bit. How have you managed to make it work for you?
We all have different sort of access limits in Extome. I've got the, so my Explain's pretty basic in a sense. So whilst everything's virtual in terms of, like, I'll see a client will scan up the notes and all that stuff, and I'll do a drag and dictation file note after each meeting. So before the next meeting, I'll read it so I know what's gone on, and enables you to be really detailed with that. We've got some people at the back end that do a lot of stuff with the modelling and the tasks and all of that, the threads and that sort of stuff. I know enough on that to be dangerous, to be frank. And so we have, for example, in August, we've got our X-Plan coach from the dealer group coming down for sort of 3 days to improve the efficiency. So I suppose it's an ongoing process, and I see that from a business point of view going forward, you'll have your business at the core, but you'll have all these add-ons. And so X-Plan being one of those. Now, X-Plan works well for us at the moment, but what's to say that midwinter might be a better option in 3 or 4 years' time? I don't know.
Yeah, so be nimble enough to get out of positions as well. Matt Meehan wants to know, how do prospects generally find you?
Google's got a lot to do with it, actually.
There you go.
Cat out of the bag there. But Google, and also I suppose we've been very conscious to work closely with centres of influence in our sort of core community. Mm-hmm. And I was quite lucky that in my past life I was a lawyer and Rebecca was an accountant. So in those sort of roles, you're actually generally engaging against other professionals. So they actually get to know you and they know how you work. So that's worked quite well. And I suppose we're also fairly involved in the community. I mean, both Rebecca and I are very social creatures. So we both sit on the boards of the schools our children are at and involved a bit in the community and that sort of stuff. And we kind of don't do that for work. It's part of being engaged in a community, I reckon.
You sound like your classic extrovert, Charles.
Yeah, you're probably right, actually.
You get energy from other people. Delegation. How do you manage to, a lot of people struggle with the delegation. How have you managed to master it so you can delegate all this stuff effectively? What are the tips?
If you can't delegate it, you can't get leverage. So if someone can do it 95% of as well as I can, why shouldn't I delegate it? And it also empowers people, because the last thing people want is someone that micromanages them what they do. So we're very lucky in terms of the staff we have, but they enjoy running with things and they enjoy the responsibility. And if they're going to run with it and do as good a job as I'm going to do, why wouldn't I delegate it? I think if I want the business to grow, if Rebecca and I want the business to grow, it's important that we sort of share the responsibility. So I suppose I've never had a problem delegating, and I think the only way you can actually get ahead is to delegate. I think if you micromanage and try to do everything yourself and do those red tasks at $20 an hour, you're wasting your time.
You get the idea that if you try and do it all yourself and micromanage, you're going to end up sort of pissing everyone off, to be quite honest. But how do you there's a big difference between dumping stuff on people and delegating effectively. Dumping is generally where you just say, I do this for me, and you don't really give enough guidance. Whereas delegation, you tend to give people a bit of direction, a bit of guidance, but then you step out of their way on the fine detail. How do you find that happy balance?
Well, normally we try to sort of, with where we give a staff member a task, I'll normally do a memo, a very detailed memo through drag and dictation.
Okay.
And then the office door is always open, and it's they come in any time and we work through it. And so it's, I think, dropping and dumping on someone is the worst thing you can do. We have quite a structured process with the staff, so they're generally sort of every step we catch up for 15 minutes a week, just in terms of where they're at, what they're doing, just at a personal level, making sure they're comfortable. I suppose taking an interest in them, like we genuinely really like working with them, and we know them better than the kids' names, the dog's name. They're kind of like friends in a way. Your staff, it's in a small office. It's kind of it's different to a big corporate, and you help each other. And I suppose very there's been times where in the first sort of couple of weeks of January we might be quiet on a new client front. So I'll actually go down to the office and talk to the 24 trip. Look, I haven't got much on. Do you want me to take some of your workload off you? And I think that's really important from their point of view. They actually see you doing those sort of things and happy to help them.
I think that's really good. One of the best bits of advice I got, and it works, in particular for working with staff who aren't in the same location as you, is understand that even if you're not together, you need to connect as people and take an interest in each other and what you do. And it can't all be work. At some point, you've got to flip over and realize that, for a third or 2/3 of their life, they've got more than that. They've got nothing to do with your business. And if you don't connect with them about what's happening outside of the world, you're only seeing a very small portion of who they are.
Yeah. It's very confronting. We had one of the people where he's 24. And his mum was down. He's actually supported himself through uni, and his mum was down from Launceston for his birthday. So I said, why don't you bring your mum in for morning tea? So his mum came in for morning tea. It was very confronting because I was actually older than his mother.
I love that. When you came out of Shadforce, you made the decision not to go self-licensed. I know you're with Fitzpatrick's, right?
Yeah.
Tell us about that decision.
Well, initially we actually went, we were pretty green when we first started. So we actually were first licensed through Lonsdale. So we were licensed with Lonsdale for 12 months and with Mark Stevens and the team, and we really, really enjoyed that. But unfortunately, IFF took over Shadforce. So it was a bit like getting into bed with your ex-wife. We couldn't do it, so we had to leave. So then we engaged Peloton partners to, Rob Jones and Michael Harrison to come up with a couple of dealer groups for us. So then we moved to Fitzpatrick's. We didn't go down the self-licensed route, I suppose, because we wanted to actually focus on actually bringing clients in and building the business. I kind of thought in due course, if we want to do that, we can evolve to that. But we thought it would be sort of taking on too much at this stage.
Has it worked out well?
Yeah, no, it's been good. It's been good. So, we're constantly evolving, but, it's good.
Good. I had the opportunity to work under Johnny Mack at Hillross. So,
okay. There's sort of, when we first walked in there, it's the kind of room you want to walk in because you're the dumbest guy in the room, and they're the sort of good rooms to be in.
It totally is. And yeah, John is a smart cat, really smart cat. Glenn Doty wanted to know, how many clients do you have at the moment, Glenn, Charles? Because you're obviously growing quickly, right?
We have about 240 clients.
Right. From a scratch.
So 200, when I say 200 groups of clients, so 240 ongoing engaged clients.
Right.
We would probably have, we probably have somewhere between sort of 15 to 25 that we're sort of working through with a view to sort of becoming ongoing at any one point in time. So we've got sort of a big, hairy, audacious goal at the end of December next year is to have sort of 300 ideal clients. So we're well on track for that.
Yep.
And we sort of, again, we break it down into sort of like quarters, and we've got a bit of a scorecard in the engine room, so to speak, which talks about where we sit on that. So all the staff are aware in terms of what we're trying to achieve.
And in terms of 300 clients, it's not an overly ridiculous number of clients, but how do you manage like investments? Is it SMAs? Is it tailored? How do you keep it
it's been a bit of an evolving process actually, because that we've actually got we run a core satellite portfolio. So we've basically got a standard sort of portfolio for clients based on their various risk profiles. I think that's the only way you can do it, but we're actually looking at sort of SMAs and that sort of stuff at the moment actually. And I suppose it was something that we weren't overly familiar with in our previous employer, but we've now got a pretty good handle on it, and certainly that will play a key part of what we do for a certain segment of clients going forward.
Perfect. Richard Goulet, I hope I've pronounced that right, would love to ask you, what are your key tips for younger advisors to build relationships, referral relationship or partnerships? When
you're building relationships, it's important you actually build them with people that are like-minded, think the same. So you can have an accountant that you think is fantastic, but if he's not a referral kind of guy and he's not wired that way and he's not committed to self-improvement and committed to sort of building the relationship, you want to be able to grow together. So you want a core group of influencers that you can actually evolve your practice with, so they can benefit from it, you can benefit from it, but also you have a really good time doing it. So you have a bit of banter, you help each other, and so it's part social, part professional. I mean, no one's going to refer your work unless they like you socially. But you've got to be conscious that it's not just going out for 6 hours at lunch, for example. It's about sort of having a meaningful coffee meeting and really helping them. And if you can help and empower them, they'll help and empower you, providing they've got the right mental mindset, I suppose.
There's a kind of add something else, which is, if you're a growing practice, which a lot of younger advisors do tend to be, and you are on a marketing angle, like you want to go down authority marketing, or you want to put stuff out there, and you're working with a business that doesn't market, they don't do any online stuff, they don't have a newsletter, they don't do events, then straight away that's got to be a red flag that says that whatever you're going to do, you're not going to be able to get control or any sort of control over getting an active stream. It's going to be a passive thing, which means it's probably not going to be fast.
Yeah, and that's probably not the sort of business you want to be in. I think you've got to be in a business that's reflective of your personality. And you're either sort of green and growing or ripe and rotten. And unfortunately, a lot of people in the industry, when you've got a mature client base, they sit back. But that's kind of not us, and it shouldn't. I suppose back to Richard's question, I'd actually try and piggyback on the tails of someone you actually respect and admire in the office to actually get them to show you the ropes and see what they do. And the old replicate and duplicate.
Yeah, replicate and duplicate, or rip off and duplicate, as some people call it.
Mm.
There's actually a great book on that if anybody's interested. Austin Kleon wrote a book called Show Your Work, which talks a lot about how to sort of create content, and also work is kind of a share of content, other people's work, and how to attribute really great stuff to sort of get that started. So yeah, on the R&D space. Justin wanted another question. Do your other advisors have to get their own clients? Assuming with all the back office skills there, you can advise on all the people who want you to be their advisor. That makes sense?
There's certainly no pressure on other advisors to get clients at this stage. We've only got 8 of us in the office. We've got plenty of work coming in. We're in sort of a niche sort of spot. That will evolve over time, but certainly from our end, there's no pressure. At the end of the day, I suppose I see Rebecca and I as the primary rainmakers. And, it's very hard for someone who's sort of 25, 26, 27 to actually replicate what you've got in the mid-40s, because you've had 20 more years of doing it than what they have. So from our point of view, there's certainly no pressure. At the end of the day, we want to deal with ideal clients. We don't want to have, and a lot of people that are, say, a 23-year-old or 24-year-old might bring in, they're kind of not the sort of stuff you can build a business on that you enjoy working in. It's really just putting out spot fires. You want to have a sustainable, meaningful relationship with a core group of clients.
Just deeper on that, what do you think it is? What are the key attributes that make it easier to be a rainmaker in your 40s than in your 20s?
I suppose it's just being patient by sort of investing in yourself from an education point of view. Also being involved in things. So whether it's a sporting club, whether it's an industry body or something, and actually just trying to get as much experience as you can during that time. So don't waste your time, because when you get to your 30s and 40s, when you've got children, time is really, really precious. Whereas in your 20s, you've got so much time. Use it wisely. Sort of seek out people, take on, say yes to everything, all of that sort of thing. I think it's over time you can be more selective, but grab every experience in your 20s. That'd be my tip.
I can't remember who said this, but it said when you're young, you've got time and energy, but no money. When you're in your midlife, you've got money and energy, but no time. And then when you get older, you've got time, but you've got time and money, but you've got no energy. So I always think about that really carefully.
It's so true.
Jenny asked a great question. Sounds like you've got an awesome culture in there, Charles, where our staff are really happy to come to work. She would love to know, how have you achieved it? What are the main things you've done to make it happen?
I suppose we want work to be fun, and we want... we do little things. So we have drinks at 4 o'clock on a Friday, and everyone goes, drinks at 4 o'clock on a Friday. But then most people work just after 8. They work through lunch and they work after 5:30. So the least we can do is do that. So we have little things. So we have we bought an arcade game, for example. So we bought an arcade game on Gumtree for $1,000. So every Friday we have a game. And so we have the highest score gets a prize. So what I did is I went to Shiploads, which is a local discount store down here.
Did you say Shiploads?
Shiploads, yes. You've got to be careful how you say that, Stuart.
You do.
And so we had, so we've got a whole lot of, so I wrapped up all these presents and stuff. And so it's a lucky dip when you, if you get the highest score in the game, you get to pick a prize. And so some of the prizes are quite humorous. So I suppose it's, and we've got, I suppose a lot of the staff have played sport. They've, like one of the, Penny is, she's the 5th fastest backstroker in the world for between 55 and 59, for example. So there's a lot of sort of, I suppose, friendly, engaging sort of, and you've got to enjoy it. If you don't enjoy your work, goodness, it'd be a nightmare.
Yeah, absolutely. We're about to do our every 90-day planning, and obviously we've got 2 of our awesome team are overseas. We do something called virtual pizza, where we'll do a planning day, and then around about lunchtime, we'll phone the pizza here, we'll phone the pizza overseas, and everyone gets pizza delivered. Around about the same time, we sit there in front of Zoom and eat pizza together. The strange thing is my pizza always arrives last. I don't know why that is. So yeah, it's that whole thing about just going, right, how can we do, we're going to do this anyway, so what can we do to make it collegiate or inclusive? Hopefully that was helpful, Jenny. Are there any other tips that you want to put in there? Because I know Jenny, this would be really useful in terms of what she's looking to do in her business.
No, I suppose one of the things we also do is, the old slow to hire as well. So
yeah,
making sure that sort of we get to know them quite well. Do your due diligence. Don't look at their sort of their referees. You do your LinkedIn check and who they know, and then you give them a call, and doing your personality test. So we've we do a personality test, which I think is $350, which enables us to look at what sort of traits we've got. That will tell us. Also, we do a bit of the prospective person doesn't realise this, but we actually go in and tour the office. And everyone in the office knows that we're going to Stuart Bill's come around and just to give us the thoughts on him. So little things like that, I suppose. And because in a small team, it's like one bad egg can wreck the whole dynamics, really.
Yeah, absolutely. You let a saboteur in amongst your team of advocates, and you got a problem. Jenny, like a couple of things to check out is Inspired Hiring on the members site, which is based on a book called The Who, The A Method for Hiring, and also on the second point, Susan Rochester's webinar, which is actually on YouTube, which talks a lot about psychometric testing, really useful. She gives insight to what it is and isn't. Charles, I know you've got to go, so let me just ask one more question and then we'll close up. I really appreciate your time. Matt and Glenn just want to know about if you're comfortable sharing fees, fee packages, what does it look like? Is there any sort of guidance you can give them around what you found works?
Well, I suppose initially, there's been a lot of talk in the industry potentially about sort of you're not charging an initial fee. But my view is if a client's not going to pay an initial fee, they're not going to pay an ongoing fee, and they're not going to value your advice. So I think you need to price your advice accordingly. One of the things which, when I first started working, I was actually on the very cheap end. And one of the things I did is I actually sort of increased the fees by 50% and lost 10% of clients during that period of time. And I wasn't increasing the fees to an excessive level. I was just way below par. And I think we need, as an industry, we need to charge what we're worth, because if we don't, the whole thing falls down. And not every client is going to be a suitable client for you. And I think we need to sort of be conscious of that. And if you look at all the good financial planning businesses, they've got similar things in common. You deal with financial delegators, but engage clients that are prepared to pay a reasonable fee for a reasonable service.
Love it. Thank you so much for sharing. I always get so much out of just listening to you talk about the whole gamut from how to run a business. You're just doing it the right way. Can you do me a favor? Just let me know if people want to know more about you, what you do, find out a bit about the book. Where can they go to get more information?
Oh, if you just send me an email, really, I suppose. I'm very, very sort of approachable. I suppose I think as an industry, we all need to sort of work together to improve the whole financial planning industry. I think we're not really competing against each other. I think we've got to sort of work more together. And this is, I suppose, a forum which enables other advisors to actually hopefully benefit from some of the things that, what I've said. And I don't profess to have all of the answers, but hopefully you've all learned something, hopefully.
This has been awesome. Is there anything else you want to add, Charles?
I suppose one of the ethos we have in the office is proper planning prevents poor performance. I think that's the key in everything we do.
That is the clean version, isn't it? Because there's another one which is another P.
This is a G show, Stuart. So.
This is a G show, so we can't go with the actual thing. Jeffrey, welcome. Jeffrey says 4 p.m. drinks every Friday. That's the key. If you do one thing, you say one thing, it's 4 p.m. drinks and grab yourself an arcade game. Which arcade game is it, Charles? Does that have interest?
You actually got 60 games on it. So you've got the Frogger, the Space Invaders, the Galaga, the 1942, all that sort of, all of them. So we choose. So what we generally do is, if Friday's the 4th of August, we pick the 4th game. If Friday's the 11th of August, pick the 11th game. So we sort of rotate it a bit.
That's good. And who's you're the champion at which in particular? What's your fave?
Well, I don't quite have the reflexes that the young ones have, so I actually struggle. I've won 2 things in 2 years. So one was a pair of gloves, so they started calling me MacGyver, and the second thing was a coat hanger for my suits.
Wow, at least you got something useful. That's the main thing.
Yes.
This has been useful. What's on for the rest of the day for you, Charles?
Oh, just a pretty sort of standard day, really. Just a few client meetings, a bit of activity, and all good, really.
Charles, thank you so much for sharing. I'll shoot through some notes and so people can check it out. But man, this has been an absolute lesson. Thank you.
No problem at all. Happy to help. Have a good day, everyone.
Take it easy, Charles. I'll see you later.
So there you have it. I hope you enjoyed that episode of The Finnovator with Charles and I. I hope you agreed that sometimes I like to go and pull out some things that, although they were recorded a while back, and for me it's really interesting to see sort of my interactions with people, how they've changed down the years. But I hope you agree there's some real stuff in there which is just as relevant today as it was back then. That's about it from me. I've got nothing else to say today other than I hope you're doing well. It's been a really tough time recently, and I know I was chatting to a friend of mine who works with in counselling, and we were talking about the impact of having such intensity going around the world right now. And she said this simple word to me, Stu, it's called post-traumatic stress disorder for a reason. So I hope everybody's keeping well. I hope everybody's keeping healthy, and I hope most of all, if you're feeling the stress, if you're feeling the strain, if you're feeling like you just can't find your new normal, please reach out to friends, family, or if you want to have a chat with me, feel free, because it's been a weird time. But more than ever before, I think we've seen, particularly in the last few weeks, that it's times like these that good advisors are at a premium, and long may the advice industry continue to change, evolve, and grow. Most of all, I hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Finnovator. Have a great week, and I'll see you soon.